What's up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to show you how to bring up a site-to-site tunnel between a site using a Unifi firewall and another site using a Fortigate firewall. So the first thing that we're going to do to bring that up is we're going to start in Unifi because I've had better luck starting the tunnel on the Ubiquiti side. I have run into issues with these tunnels before, so it is kind of a temperamental process. We'll probably run into some issues along the way here as well. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to start here and we're going to do create new. And if you don't know how to get to the VPN settings on your Unifi controller, it's down here on the left, the gear icon. You're going to click the settings and then you're going to go to VPN and then site-to-site VPN. So you can see at this location that I have another Fortigate tunnel already up and running to a different Fortigate, and that's been up for 19 hours, very stable, working great. So we're just going to go ahead and create another one. So we're going to go ahead and create new. We're going to choose IPSEC, and we're just going to call this Fortigate Ton 2. Pre-shared key, we're going to go ahead and put something in good there. Local IP. Now, my Unifi firewall is actually behind another firewall at this location. So it has a local IP address. Something to note. Then I'm going to go ahead and put the public IP of my Fortigate firewall because it's the remote device that we want to connect to. I'm going to put that IP here. I have not done a route-based tunnel with Ubiquiti to Fortigate, so we're going to go ahead and select policy-based. And for the remote network, this is the network that you want your users at the Unifi site to be able to communicate with behind the Fortigate. So what we're going to do here, the network that lives behind my Fortigate that I want to communicate with is 1090.10.0/23. So once you have that in there, you go ahead and click add. And as you can see, you can add multiple networks. For advanced, I'm going to go ahead and select manual. I'm going to leave this as IKE v1. I've had some issues with IKE v2 setting these up. So we're just going to leave that set at IKE v1, AES 2v6, and we're going to go ahead and set SHA-512 there. I'm going to leave this at 14, and I'm going to change this to 86,400 because that's the default value on the Fortigate tunnel. For the phase 2 settings, I'm going to go ahead and select AES 256, SHA-512 again. I'm going to go ahead and put 43,200 because that's also the default value on the Fortigate side for the phase 2. And these two I can leave the same here. So I'm going to go ahead and click add. So if we go and we click back on VPN, site to site, we can see that we have a tunnel now active and ready to go. So at this point, I'm going to change over to the Fortigate firewall that I want to connect to. And you want to go to VPN on the left side here and then click on IPSEC tunnels. And then we're going to click create new IPSEC tunnel. I'm not a fan of the wizard, which I've said in other videos. I'm going to select custom and I'm going to call this Unifi Ton. Okay. I'm going to put the public IP address that my Unifi firewall is behind. In my case, it's this right here. Here, I'm going to select the public interface on my Fortigate firewall that my Unifi firewall is connecting to. In that case, it's going to be this interface here. I'm going to leave those settings the same. I'm going to enter in the same pre-shared key that I entered in my Unifi firewall. For my phase 1 proposal, we need to match what we set in Unifi. What we set in Unifi was 256, 512, 14, and then like I said, 86,400 is the default value here. Now, in the past, I've set this up with older firmware Unifi firewalls, and it always worked best with quad 0 here. What I noticed when I've been working with them a little recently is that they tend to work better. They tend to drop less if you actually put the networks, you explicitly state what networks you want to communicate here in the phase 2. So for the local address, just like I had on the remote address on the Unifi side, I'm going to put the network that I want my Unifi network to be able to communicate with behind this FortiGate. And then for the remote address, the network that lives behind my Unifi firewall is this network right here. And that's what I want my FortiGate network to be able to communicate with. So here we're going to go ahead and we have to match the settings again, 256, 512. We're going to leave PFS on and we're going to only allow 14. And then we're going to hit auto negotiate, auto keep alive. After that's done, we're going to go ahead and click OK. And as we can see, we have our unified tunnel here ready to go. So it's also, right now it's down, even though we have both sides configured, there's a few other things that we have to do. So we're going to go to click on policy and objects on the left side here, and then click on firewall policy. And once we're in our firewall policy screen, we're going to click create new. And we're just going to call this Unifi to Fortigate. We're going to click on incoming interface. And then for outgoing interface, we want the Unifi device to be able to communicate with our data LAN behind the FortiGate. For source, destination, and service, we're just going to put all for each one of those. All right, so you can see we have all set for those. I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to make sure that it's set to enable, which it is, and click OK. So we have our firewall policy allowing communication from the unified tunnel to our data LAN behind the FortiGate. I'm just going to go ahead and clone reverse so that our FortiGate networks can communicate across the tunnel to our Unifi networks. And I'm going to go ahead and enable that. Now, the last thing that you need to do on the FortiGate side is we need to create a static route telling our firewall where to go to get to that 192.168.0 network. So we're going to get a network. We're going to go to static route. We're going to go ahead and click create new. And we need to tell our FortiGate where that network lives. So even though it's allowed on the tunnel, and there is a setting in the VPN tunnel that adds the route if the network comes up. So it actually might work without this, but I always put this in addition to using that setting on the VPN tunnel on the FortiGate. So we're going to go ahead and click interface. And now our firewall is explicitly told to get to this network, use the unified tunnel. So we're going to click OK. All right, so now we have our route in. So now let's check our VPN tunnel status to see if our VPN tunnel's up and stable. So we're going to go to dashboard, and then you can add the IPSEC monitor here. It's super helpful. All right, so it looks like our tunnel's up. We have both phase 1 and phase 2. All this looks good. Let's check it on the Unifi side. Oh, great. We're looking good over here, being up for about 4 minutes. I have run into issues where I will bring up a tunnel from Unifi to FortiGate, and it will consistently drop about every minute or every 2 minutes. That's usually when I create the FortiGate side first and then the Unifi side. So that's why in this tutorial, we did the Unifi side first, and it looks to be stable. As you can see, I have another one that I created last night in preparation for this video. It's been up for almost 20 hours. So that one should be good as well. But if you do have problems with it continually crashing, what I would recommend is going to manage, checking it, hitting pause on it, or if it's continually crashing, there's usually if you hover over this, it'll have a little button that shows up here that says to reset. So I would hit that a few times and just continue to monitor it and make sure that the tunnel is set up good and stable before you move forward. One thing I'll throw in here as well is, we got the tunnel up and it seems to be working, but we didn't test I didn't test connectivity between the two sites. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that now. Now I'm actually connected to my Unifi Express over Wi-Fi. So if I do an IPA, you can see here that I am on the 192.168.0 network, right? So if you remember when we set up the tunnel, the network that we want to communicate with is 1090.10.0/23. So one of the interfaces on my Fortigate, 1090.10.1, should respond to ping. So I'm going to go ahead and try to ping that now. Okay. And that looks good. Looks like we can communicate from the Unifi Express to the device on the Fortigate. So let's try a device maybe on the network to make sure that we can communicate past the firewall to a device on the network. All right, that looks good as well. So if you really wanted to test, you could do a trace route just to see the hops in case, to make sure that your traffic isn't taking some other weird route to its destination. If you're networking, you can probably relate to that. So we can see where that goes. Okay, so you can see here that it's hitting my Unifi Express gateway, trace route being funky because of the tunnel, and then it's hitting the endpoint. So we're good there, at least from behind the Unifi Express. Now let's test from the Fortigate. So in order to successfully test from traffic across a VPN tunnel, you have to source the ping from the Fortigate, from the interface, or from the network that is allowed across the tunnel. So in our case, it's the 1090.10 network. So I'm going to do execute ping options source 1090.10.1 because that's my interface. And I'm going to do execute ping 192.168.0.1. All right, so if something with the Unifi Express gateway wouldn't allow ping on the internal interface, but my endpoint is reachable from the Fortigate firewall. 192.168.0.56 is what I got, what I'm using connected to Wi-Fi right now. So that establishes that there's communication between, both sides. If any of you guys have issues with getting a tunnel between a Unifi and Fortigate site up and running, go ahead and shoot me a comment. I'll be happy to respond to you and, try to assist you with getting it going. So as always, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one.